So this evening we've got Jenny, who's a creative communicator, independence coach, low vision awareness consultant, as well as an innovator. Her experience of living with a degenerative eye disease for more than 45 years gives a unique perspective on how design in digital and physical spaces can improve independence and dignity. So over to you, Jenny.
All right, thanks. It's nice to be here. And I'm very excited to be in a design space because I'm so used to being in a disability space. So you might wonder upfront, what is low vision? So because it's not very, it just seems like it's a really strange term. Does it mean that your eyeballs are lower in your face, or, that it's really difficult to understand. So, and I think that's what people with low vision, they're not blind, but they're not sighted. And so the story of low vision is really, there are over 250 eye diseases. They all have different ways of showing forth in the patient and in the person. And it's also 3 different people can have 3 different eye disease, or the same eye disease, but 3 different conditions. And it's pretty similar to, normal vision. You can't just say, oh, because you've got low vision, you need a magnifier, or you have to have magnification, because there are different kinds of low vision. So I'm going to show you some glasses here, which show various conditions. And really, it's kind of messed up vision. This one is very black, and I left tiny holes in the middle. And so that's something called like retinitis pigmentosa. And it's a form, it's often carried through the male line. And it's where people lose their sight from the outside in, generally, not always. And so often people like that. So if you take your hands and you put them over your eyes as if you're looking through binoculars, okay, and if you make that hole really small, then someone like with tunnel vision will see that. So you can see that they'll have trouble moving around. I mean, if you were to walk around a room like this, you'd bump into people. So often people who have some kind of tunnel vision or retinitis pigmentosa, it's not always the same. As I say, every eye disease is different, but they would need a mobility cane or a guide dog or something to be able to walk around, because they struggle with mobility and bumping and tripping into things. And then one of the other big categories of low vision is some essential vision loss. And that pretty much is if you take your fists and you put them, you make them very tight, and you put them right over your eyes, right against your, the top of your brows. And now, if you had to do that, you can't see in front of you, but if you had to look around the room, you would be able to kind of see the furniture and whatever's around you. You'd see some color out of your peripheral vision. And so that is called macular degeneration. Usually, it's there are different kinds of things that can destroy the macula. So those are 2 general large categories of eye diseases. And so when a person says that they're visually impaired, it's not like blindness. Often people say if you're walking with a cane, they think it's like an on-off switch, that now you're sighted, now you're blind. And unfortunately for some people, it is like that, but very few people have that condition where it's an on-off situation. You're either blind or you're not. It's binary. But visual impairment is more a spectrum of blindness. It's from the time when the ophthalmologist says to the patient, I'm sorry, there's nothing more we can do with spectacles to help you. Now you need to bring things close, you're bringing things close to your face, or you might need a handheld magnifier to increase what you're looking at or trying to see. And that is the beginning of blindness. And so it's important to understand that on the spectrum, severely in vision, if you had to take it, say 100 points or 100% of blindness, there's only in South Africa, there are about 400, just between 400,000 and 500,000 people who are blind in that last 90% percentile. But the rest of the visual impairments, that other, from 0 until 90, is various kinds of confusing eye conditions. And some people lose color, some people have perfect eyesight, but their brain doesn't work. So they're looking at something, but they can't comprehend what they're looking at. So it's called a CVI, a cortical visual impairment. And then you've also got other people who, yeah, sorry, I'm just getting distracted here. Let me give you a visual impairment for now. Not sure if you can see me, if I'm moving around. So for anyone else visually impaired on the call, if you can see something, I'm the white blob in front of sort of an orangey background. And so that's, I'm not sure if you could see there, it's sort of like a mirage. It moves around, and some people have moving blind spots. So in South Africa at the moment, we're over about 1.5 million people who are visually impaired. Now, a lot of us, for years, I didn't go to get help from a place called Blind, because when you're losing your sight, you don't want to see that B word, blind. And so for me, it was only when I got severely visually impaired and finally I picked up a white cane, which is also an identity issue. So a lot of people, there's a lot of folk, even like seniors walking around who are visually impaired, but they wouldn't say I'm disabled because I'm not blind. I can see. I just can't see my nails, but I can see enough to move around. And so because of this, it's almost like a missing gap in disability, because it doesn't quite fall in disability and doesn't quite fall out. And yet in the 2011 census, which was the last one that asked the right questions, we'll see what comes from this recent one, but you could see that there were more people with visual impairment than all the other disabilities put together. And so, and you probably know people who are visually impaired. Some of them wouldn't tell you that they're visually impaired, and many people choose not to disclose it. So when you're looking at your customer base in a business, or you're designing, for a target market, low vision, dyslexia, you add in any kind of print disability, those people require some kind of special design in order to access the information. And in this day and age, when everything is going visual, I mean, most communication is either video or image based. And so it's so important that we take concepts and principles that apply to low vision and to dyslexia. Some of those are very similar. And then we're looking also at introducing audio. Audio is also helpful for other people who don't process visually, obviously, but for some people it's essential. So you'll know that the WCAG, when you're looking at the levels of accessibility, that their motto then is to say what is essential for some is useful for all. And later on, I'm going to talk about some of those things. I'm going to be showing a few videos and give you a little bit of experience of what a visually impaired person has to deal with at times. So for me, it was only after 35 years I got upskilled. So I was legally blind by the time I finished school. I should have gone to a special needs school, but I just pretended I could see, and I moved fast. But the same principles I used for navigating as if I could get around normally was landmarking was particularly helpful. So even now when I go for a walk in the mornings, if you can imagine walking down your street, so I want you to imagine, because I don't have a slide presentation here, is imagine your street. And now think of all the things that you're going to do. If you walk past your neighbor's house, what does it look like? You can picture yourself there, and you're probably looking at the cars, the trees, the post boxes, the fences, or whatever. For me, I look at the sky. And so I walk in the early morning so I can get that night contrast between the top of the trees and the skyline, because I know that at the third tree I can turn left, and that's Tamworth Crescent. And when I turn right, then, I'm in that street. So a lot of people will navigate also in like physical spaces. It translates to digital spaces. Often people will navigate in digital spaces using things that you would never imagine, because there are clues, there are visual clues all over the place. And that's where having low vision, you think that there's nothing wrong with a person, but nobody wants to put a hand up and say, actually, I'm struggling to see that text. So there's aspects, for instance, when there's all caps and it's a block of caps. So it can be really any color, But capital letters, for me, it just looks like a block. So I learned to read by the shape of the word. So aeroplane is rounded on the one side and it's rounded on the other side. It might have a bit of a smile on the end of the word. Sorry, I'll have to do it backwards for you. If the A was on your right, and then you'd have a letter going down and a letter going up. So the P goes down, the L goes up, and so you get the shape of a word. And a lot of people read from the shape of the word and the surrounding words to make sense of what it is. So with many disabilities or struggles or, barriers to getting information, people have worked out clues and tricks and all kinds of coping mechanisms. So when you're designing and you're looking at particular conditions, usually those are the conditions that are very well defined. They, that if you're blind, okay, you can't see anything. So blindness is if it's not black, but if you put your hand behind your head and now you look at your hand, that's what it's like to be blind. So so that's the situation. It's kind of a non-understanding. So today I'm talking a lot about low vision. So blindness is a whole different kettle of fish, actually, and it's got very much to do with audio as well. So I'm just getting distracted because my phone's ringing. So let me just turn that off for the recording. Sorry about that. Blind girl gets distracted by haptic sensory overload. So when you're looking at low vision, there are 5 basic principles. And some of those things, when you look at digital design, can be manipulated by the device that the person is using. So you've got color, you've got contrast, you've got size, and then I will get to the other ones because I can't read my notes. There's glare and lighting. Those are the other ones. So when we're looking at color, there's some people who have various types of color blindness. There's a young man I know that when he looks at something blue, it looks as if it's pink. So I'm not sure if you've ever tried to attach an HDMI cable into an old television and the colors don't match. And then you'll see all the greens go pink and the blues sort of go orange. And that's how some people see. So color is very important, and many people can choose filters on their phone to adjust that. The other thing is size, which thank goodness in the devices you can choose extra contrast and you can choose the font size. But sometimes people, if the size of the letters are so big, they can't see where they're at on their screen. So I had a chap who came from the store and he said they set the settings so I can see them, but none of his family could figure out where he was on the screen. He actually needed it smaller so he could get the shape of the layout. So that's where your paragraphs and styles and your line lengths help to make a shape on the page. And some people will be navigating by those shapes. So before I get too distracted on that, so the other thing is your brightness, which can be affected on your screen. But some of the colors are so bright, particularly the yellows that are often used for accessibility. And those yellows can give off such a high reflection value that it causes the person to want to squint. I'm not sure if you've come across adverts like that, where it's bright green, and I won't mention some of the brand colors. So when you put a white writing on a color that has a high reflection value, it decreases your ability to see. And now someone might be in a situational visual impairment. So maybe they're outdoors. You get a lot of these agricultural apps, or people, are out and about and you've got glare on your screen. Well, actually, you're visually impaired for that time. So if you had to design your digital spaces for people who are visually impaired, it would be useful for a bunch of other people sitting in coffee shops with some glare coming through the windows, and they keep on seeing people walking past on the reflection of their screen and still trying to read the writing. So we looked at glare. So a lot of those things can be taken care of on the device if everything is sorted out. I'm not going to go into detail today about increasing contrast. I think that's some of the things you will know, but there's some very modern colors at the moment. So the very pale pinks, you go into Canva, there's some like beautiful templates that they've got. But when you put writing on that, it's important to make that writing pop off the page. This is for people with dyslexia as well. With dyslexia, you need the font weighted slightly. And for low vision, it's also helpful if you can put shadow onto, say, imagine the white writing on a pale pink. And that's like peachy pink, which is quite trendy at the moment. And it looks lovely, but if the words cannot be read by all, is it really useful? So I think you're walking this balance between aesthetics and usability. At the end of the day, for me, if the words are worth writing, they're worth reading. They're worth being able to access. Anyway, so I think, Cheswe, from here, could you pop one of the videos I've made? What about the Checkers 6060 video on?
Okay, just give me a second.
So here we're going to be looking at screen reader accessibility, whether it has been labeled in the background and what chunks of information have been labeled together.
Hi, I'm Jenny Webster from See You Are Able. And this month, I'd like to give a thumbs up to Checkers for the accessibility of the 6060 shopping app with the screen reader. This makes life great for us visually impaired who love to shop independently. So thank you, Checkers, for including us.
All the buttons are labeled.
Home, My Shop, Search, Profile, R0.00 Basket,
And it allows us to access all the categories.
Baby, Fruit, Vegetable, Bakery, Milk, Meat, Poultry and Seafood. Page 1 of 23. Page 2 of 23. Meatless Mondays, Fresh Produce. R18.99 Baby Plum Tomatoes pack 250 grams.
So it's very useful there. It's saying what the image is, and it's giving the information and the weight, and it's also giving the price in the same focus point. So very grateful, and a thumbs up to Checkers for allowing us visually impaired people to shop independently. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there we are. Don't worry. I'll say it. Awareness unlocks inclusion.
Sorry.
That's fine. Not a problem. Thanks, Cheswe, for doing that for me. And so, from that, you can see just an experience of the screen reader. But also what was nice is that often when there's text on an image, it just says image, or you click onto the banner and it says PNG 69593, and you always know you're being left out of something. There are ways that we can zoom in. So many people with low vision, and I teach this on your devices, you can use a double tap gesture. And I think on Android, it's a single tap gesture, and you can adjust the magnification. I think on iOS, it's a 2 or 3 finger triple tap. And then, so you can have a normal size screen, but you can triple tap on that place, and suddenly the menu, that little hamburger, will pop right up and take up the whole screen. And then you can adjust it in and out to be able to get it to the right size. So that's why I think inclusion consulting, it involves both sides of a barrier. Now, visual content is a barrier for people with visual impairment, but it's important for visually impaired people to upskill and to find out what's on their devices. But it's also important that it's designed so that we can use those aspects in the phone, the accessibility that's created. So it really needs to be designed in the back end properly in order to be able to access that. Cheswe, I wonder if you would share then, let's share the, FNB, and I'm saying anything about FNB. I really think they are trying hard. I think it must be very difficult what has happened with their banking app, and got absolute, it's not an easy thing. Design for accessibility is not easy. And that's why it has to be really a team effort. And it's important to include users in every aspect of your design for those spaces. And this is where in South Africa, we're looking to connect people with different disabilities and experiences to create, a testing team to be able to look at some of these spaces and give feedback. So Cheswe, I wonder if you could share one of those, and then also how I helped, because I just thought it's very tough. So let's just see how we can have a look at those too. Note, I didn't say the brand in the first video.
Sorry, I don't know what I did with my windows. I've got so many windows open.
Okay, that's fine.
Sorry.
And If it doesn't happen, that's fine too. So I'll talk about one of my favorite apps until that comes up. So Cheswa, you can just play it and I'll stop talking when it comes up. I used to love the old Capitec app, not the one now, the one before that, because I was able to navigate by the colors, because you've got the light blue for the savings account, the dark blue for your savings plans, and the red for the, for your credit things, which I thought was pretty smart as well. And it is easier to navigate. And then on the new Capitec app, while I like it, and the Capitec is pretty accessible, it's pretty much up there on accessibility for banking for the visually impaired. For low vision, it's quite difficult because some of the icons are, it's the beautiful blue, but it's using the lines of the blue. It's not a full color. And that's quite difficult because with low vision, especially if you think of landmarking, people are using landmarks. Like when I held the, made you visually impaired, if you have to try and look at detail, and especially a light blue on a white, it's quite difficult to see. So a full color would be a lot easier for some of those icons. And it really is, a matter of awareness, of understanding what is inclusive. I think we're going for it now.
We're banking on accessibility.
Well, of course I can bank independently. Oh no, they just updated the app.
Promise
to know what to press.
Button.
I appeal to FSPs, please check in your procurement process that your software developer companies know how to spell accessibility. We need apps that are born accessible.
While blindness is not yet curable, designing accessibly is.
Awareness unlocks inclusion.
Please don't turn a blind eye.
Okay, obviously other things. You could hear, yeah. So you could hear a little bits of the frustration there. Have I frozen? With me to hold my hand as we. Oh, that's another one. That's another.
Oh, sorry.
So stop that. Yeah. That was a video I did, What the Blur is Low Vision Inclusion. And I chatted to a chap called Jeremy Opperman. You can find that on my YouTube channel. It's quite interesting. Also talking about the human-centered design and the social model around disability. Yeah. So anyway, in the next one, Tuesday, not to worry. In the next one, I showed actually how you can use within iOS, you can actually use a gesture on the voiceover screen reader to label the apps. So I went in and I labeled the apps. So on that video, I just showed people who were then stuck out of banking. For us as the visually impaired community, it was quite something. We're all on chats trying to figure out how to go and which way to swipe. And so then I just did a little video to show how to use a 2-finger press and hold. And it brings up a labeling function where you can label the buttons from the front end. So I had quite a bit of fun with that. I could say home is where the heart is. And I could go menu, food-free menu. Is that the one?
Should I play it?
Do you want to?
I think they'll like it. Yeah.
Okay.
Today, I'm going to demonstrate to visually impaired F&B clients how to label the buttons from the front end of the app.
F&B, contact us, pay, transfer, buy.
Some of the buttons are labeled, but we want to get to those that aren't, and then I'll show you what to do.
Button, home.
The screen recognition says home, so we want to actually, we can leave that for now, but we're going to swipe one to the right.
Button.
It's meant to say bank.
So now what we need to do is we need to do a 2-finger double tap and hold.
Alert, label element.
Label element. So now it's showing that it's F&B in the background.
Text field is editing, label, word mode, insertion point at start.
Insertion point at start. So now we can say bank.
B, B.
You'll see I'm not really great at typing blind.
M, N, A.
Bank. All right.
Done. Bank, button.
So now
button, bank,
It
Button.
says bank. All right, we're going to go one to the right.
Button.
When the screen recognition finds us, it says chat.
Apparently it's meant to say messages.
Two finger, tap hole. I'm going to use dictation. Message.
Inserted message. Say button. Message.
Right,
Button.
now it should say home bank message.
Button. Home. Bank. Button. Message. Button.
Message. Great.
For those who can't see, I'm zooming in with the zoom gesture.
Okay, it's my profile. Then menu.
Home. Bank. Message. My profile. Menu.
Yoo-hoo, we're getting somewhere. When you press on menu, the buttons don't go in follow order from left to right as usual. They go from top to bottom.
Button. Button.
But it doesn't really matter if you're going to label it.
Button.
So once again, we go
Button.
through our labeling process. You might want a pair of eyeballs on this.
I trust that this has been helpful.
While blindness is not yet curable, designing accessibly is. I'm Jenny Webster from See You Are Able, reminding you that awareness unlocks inclusion.
Okay. So if you had to say to me a year ago, I'd be doing this, I would tell you you're absolutely nuts. So I actually want to tell you, so I am a startup. I developed a product also to be able to access information. So people can use their smart devices hands-free as electronic magnifiers. And I was privileged enough to win a Disability Empowerment Award from the South African Breweries Foundation. And together with Further Impact, who have mentored me into business, they decided, no, I didn't just have a product, but they wanted me as well. So that's where the word curable comes from. And it stands really for See You Are Able. And it's a message I want to give to everyone. It's not just about blindness, but it's for designers as well, to say, see, you are able. And the seeing is about awareness. And for me, I just want to cheer on all designers who are even tackling the whole theme of accessibility, because in many ways, you're designing for your own future. You're designing for one day, we will all be seniors one day. And with the advance in medical technology, people are living longer, babies are born earlier. There's a lot more special needs kids out there, people needing special help to access information. And also, just to put a punch for audio describe, a screen reader can read the words, but there's a company called Shazison as well. You might want to look up for audio describe. I work alongside them. And for seeing, your colors mean things. You design these beautiful platforms and images. You take hours choosing images. And it's so important that visually impaired people, a lot of people had low vision and then went blind because of that spectrum. And so within our memories, we can remember what things look like. We can remember the smell of pink. We can remember what the stars look like. So we just have to be outdoors on a clear night and hear the crickets, and we know what the stars look like, and they're experiencing the situation. And that's where, especially when you're designing portals where there are how-to videos. And what's funny enough is that as a visually impaired person, I mean, you want to just upskill yourself everywhere you can. And then you get to these how-to videos, even on Facebook, how to deal with, the new apps within Facebook. And the how-to video is got no audio describe or option for it's pictures, and they're very light colors on a white background. It's like, okay, there goes another one. And so, I think it's to do with the human experience. It's about dignity. It's about independence. It's about what it does to you to be able to just do your own banking, being able to draw money, being able to buy food. There's one of the shopping apps at the moment, which is, probably supports the most delivery people at the moment in South Africa. And the screen reader won't lock onto the add to cart. So you have to turn off your screen reader, turn on screen recognition. Yay, AI, artificial intelligence coming to our rescue. And it'll say, it looks like a shopping cart, or it looks like whatever. It'll describe the image, or a block that says add to cart. And then you hopefully you're on the right place, and then you turn your screen recognition off and turn your screen reader on, and you double tap on that space. So, it's just those little things that take a lot of time when you're really trying to keep up with the normal flow of life. That creates, and that's why it's barriers. It's just barriers, and those barriers are curable. They really are. I've got a philosophy that actually everything in life is curable, even death. If you've got eternity in your heart and you've got a legacy to leave, what's wrong with dying? And so, just having a look at, for me, it's about how you see it. So I thought, how do I see my visual impairment? Well, what can I do as a visually impaired person that sighted people need? And this is how I got into this space. And I think for all of you, you carry things that are, even in your design, they're things that get up your nose. They're things that, cause justice to rise up in you. And so how do you as a designer embrace that and give into the very space that you want to see solutions? So I think, Cheswe, that's about me for now. Is that helpful?
I think you share a lot with us, and I'm so sorry I forgot to actually say in the beginning that we shouldn't be using the chat this evening, specifically because it would actually hinder the process for everybody, for you specifically with your screen reader. So I'm glad nobody actually put any messages in the chat. So,
Or they've fallen asleep maybe.
No, I'm sure everybody's still wide awake, but thank you so much. I mean, do you still want us to go through any of the other videos? Oh, wait, we've got a hand up. Sorry.
Yes, there are some more videos. And yeah.
Hi, my name is Hiten. I'm an architect and a universal asset consultant.
Yes.
I just want to say that I found your insight on digital space very interesting. I do agree with you about the Capitec app. I prefer the older version compared to the new one because I was so used to the accessibility. It was easy to navigate. It was faster to do banking with. And I continue to use the older app before when they release a new one until they disable the older version of the app and it forced me to move on to a new one. I'm also with FNB, and I do agree with you that FNB is the most complicated banking apps of all the banks that I've tried. And I think I want to ask you, have you tried speaking to FNB about improving the accessibility of the app?
Yeah, I think they're onto that. And I know that there are folks in conversation with them around that. And so I think we need to have some grace there for them while they do some changes and fixes, and they're dealing with the feedback from the public, which is wonderful.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I do have a client that I work with. He works at First Rand. So perhaps would it be okay with you if I can recommend him to speak to you and talk to you about get the banking platform more accessible?
Yes. And there are various organizations. So we're trying as much as possible to work together to increase the awareness around this. I think for me, my heart is for the universities, where I think a lot in the physical environment as well as digital environment is that there's very short modules on accessibility. When in the 2020 World Economic Forum, they actually said that the disability and special needs sector is as big as the emerging market, as big as China, because you've got 15, what we call the 15% club. So those are people with various kinds of struggles, barriers to learning and disabilities. You can also then add your third language users and illiterates, people who are not quite literate are also using their mobile devices now. And so when you look at that as a customer, 15% of your customers is a lot of people. And then you add to them their family members who will support them on those platforms of communication. That's a large sector of society. And so I really think that if people don't get with accessibility, that they will be left behind. So it's wonderful to see what's going on in Europe and in America. And they have big sticks there. You can get fined if your website is not accessible. there's a court case going on now because of one company that said their plugins just make your, they sort out your whole website, and actually they don't, and they've been taken to court. And so, but I think for me, it's kindness that leads to repentance. Nobody intends to leave anybody out. And so for me, I prefer to use the carrot way. Let's rather put some carrots there, give some understanding, give the human side of it, the dignity, personalize it, and then, bring that case towards the businesses that are involved in creating these platforms digitally and in the physical environments. So low vision does appear on the building code, but it's very subjective. And for me, I found, even little things like sometimes you have the paving in the parking lot, and then you've got a slight rise in the paving, it's sort of an angled paver, and then you've got the top paver. So we've got a brand new Woolworths in Durbanville, and when they were designing that, they made the bricks on the edge of the car park where the car goes the same color as the rise. So you can't actually see where the change in level is. So it looks very neat, but if they had just reversed the color of the bricks, they could have used a darker brick on the rise and a lighter brick above. And it just enables people, it stops people tripping and falling, people with bifocals or trifocals walking downstairs in particular. So there's a lot of things in the built environment as well where low vision is not very understood, because low vision people, we're too busy losing our sight and trying to cope with going blind to, then having time to really explain all of this.
I think it's not only the low vision people have those challenges, even the normal people have challenges. I myself have jumped over flooring that I didn't recognize the shape from a black flooring. I'm just want to mention that I'm a deaf person, and I have power hearing, so acoustic is also a barrier for me, other than just the visibility of the environment. So I'd like to know, can you share what other tips you have for us architects, how to design the physical environment for low vision?
Well, it's not something I can do on one meetup, but I do have some video material of some of the environments I've sort of audited, and I will collaborate with someone if that is something that is needed. But I'll give you a couple of tips. So even texture, sometimes you're in an environment where, so there's this beautiful building, some modern flats in Cape Town, and I went there with a friend, and she said, "Oh, it's so nice. Every floor is a different color," but the accent color on the wall was not opposite the lift. So for me, I'm like, yay! I was a visually impaired person. I know which floor I'm on, but I had to get out of the lift and then to see what color it was, and then sometimes the lift door would close, and then now I don't know what floor I'm on. I'll rather just use the stairs so that I can go and see the colors. So even that, just knowing your accent colors need to be where the elevator opens so you can see the color. If you're going to use color as part of your navigation skills, which I think color is very powerful. I dislike those broad yellow stripes. I really think that designers have a lot more intelligence than needing to use that all the time. It is helpful in some circumstances. On stairwells, Chesley, I wonder if you can share one or two of the slides I have of stairwells.
I was just actually going to ask you, can I open that? Sorry, let me get there.
Yeah, thanks. That's my product, by the way. I think it appeared. There, it's just a device stand I was making out of recycled PVC, and it was user designed because there's nothing that holds an iPad or a phone where you can still pick it out. It always has clamps on it. And so that's a way to use your iPad or tablet as an electronic magnifier. Okay, we can move on from there. So here we go. There's some stairwells. The left-hand side one is somewhere in the middle of Cape Town. And you've got these beautiful colors on the edge of the steps, but I'm not sure, would you like to go down those stairs? Can you see which one ends and which one starts where?
Yes.
And then, so that's, some of that is nice because it shows you that there's a change in levels. But as a visually impaired person, I found the pattern was very confusing on my eyes because I've got blind spots which go around. So I just walked and then I put my cane down as far as it could go and I jumped. And then on the right-hand side is actually, I think that was in Tiger Valley, where you'll see, look at the color of the top step is, so the color change needs to be on the change of level. It's, it's not helpful to have the same color on the top step. Yes, you can see that something's coming up, but it's very difficult to see the edges then of those steps. So often with low vision clients, I say to them, don't look on the at the steps, look on the side, because usually on the side you've got tiling in squares, and that will tell you where about, which step is. You can usually work out the width of that skirting. So skirting boards are very helpful for visually impaired people, knowing and also for people with dementia. So in retirement industry, if you can have a clear contrast between the floor and the wall, it gives people a sense of balance. And you won't really notice it, but a lot of people are disorientated in hospitals because they've got those corners so that the beds don't bump into the walls, which you understand why they're there. But for a visually impaired person, it can be very disconcerting. We can move on then, Chase. Yeah, this one, I think it's a red stripe, just showing, it was in Canada actually, showing a lead up to a desk, and I just loved it. I thought sometimes you walk into a place, you don't know quite where to go, especially in some of the modern coffee shops, and just having this red stripe was great. And then the bathroom signs on the right-hand one is, yeah, I thought that was tasteful, and it's large enough, and even kids can see, so it's not a full image, but it does denote which way to go and the bathroom that is. I think there's some stairwells. Yeah, here. So on the left-hand side is actually the Boston the Design College in Cape Town, opposite Cape Town Society for the Blind. And I love that wide yellow stripe up to the info desk. If you're a nervous student arriving your first day, I think that's quite a relief. And then on the right-hand side, you would think that very dark steps, usually I wouldn't suggest that the rise of the step is the same color as the top of the horizontal on the step. It's nice to have the rise in one color and the horizontal, but in this case, the ambient light, the natural light is catching the little silver edge of the step, and it works very well. And that's why a lot of the design, to be low vision inclusion and for people with dementia, and it's important to be in that environment. It's quite hard to make hard and fast rules because of lighting and glare and different times of day. There's a place in the Cape Gate Hospital, the stairs work fairly well, but at a particular time of the day, there's no shadows, and the glare is so bad that it's very difficult to use their stairwell. Right, and so for low vision.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No, sorry. Go on. I was just going to say someone hand up.
That's fine. I'll just say for low vision, if you and for person, if your legs work, I'd rather use the stairs because I can't see the numbers on the lift, and often they only say the number once you've pressed it. They don't highlight a button before you press it, so it's difficult to know which button you've pressed until you've pressed it, and then you've got to figure out, now where am I going to go? Then I just pray that somebody comes in. So I love public spaces because there are people in public spaces. People are really helpful. I think someone wants to ask a question.
Peter, you have your hand up?
Sorry, I was struggling to get my microphone. Yeah, hi all. Nice to meet you all again. Yeah, Jennifer, I just had a question quickly. Do you know of some courses or maybe some visual aids that we can attend or that we can join where we can get a little bit more information on accessible design for digital, for physical spaces? I'm also an architect, also transitioning into UX design. So I think in both those areas, I think it is quite important that we do address something like that. A couple of months ago, I attended a course where we spoke about the psychology of color, specifically dealing with things like people that are on the spectrum, how you paint walls and for schools or areas that they are often in, and how how the color relates to keeping them calm and keeping them focused and things like that. So do you know if there are any courses like that that we can attend, or can you advise on that?
Well, I think when it comes to the digital space, I'm really more the storyteller as a user in the space. And I have, just some slide decks on making vision-friendly slide presentations. So that's what I do as part of my consulting. But I think the online courses, there's quite a few online in terms of digital accessibility. And I really think that getting into UX, I think everybody should do it. I did one through the edX, and I'm sure, Chesway, this is what this is your field, which you could probably answer the questions here. And but really, you can get within a 26-hour course, get a lot of information around the different kinds of users and also the devices and switches that people are using to access that. So I think it's important that, that people educate themselves on accessibility up front. And I think this is where even like you see an app where it's not born accessible. So it's like building a house and forgetting the bathroom, and now you want to add on a bathroom. It's just not going to look nice. And as a designer, you want spaces to really look nice. And that's why I feel even for these big buildings, these government buildings or airports, whatever, there's some really just cool things that could be done with tiles and as you say, with colors, just to help people navigate. I know in Johannesburg, when you come off the airplane and you're trying to figure out how to get to your luggage, there's no tile aisles to just a set of tiles, and people don't realize that they're being led by the environment, except those of us who rely only on those clues. And it creates a sense of security without you knowing it, because we don't just have visual acuity. I'm not answering your question, but we have visual perception, which comes to other parts of our brain. It's to do with light and proprioception and where your body is at space. And that is affected by color as well, as you said. In terms of the color, I don't know. I'm not a designer. I'm an educator and a user. And so, but I just know how much independence it's brought me on using public transport, how even the uniforms used by different services can help to feel a person to feel enabled or disabled, or can make a person feel flustered without realizing it. Similar to ambient sound, in the restaurants. Yeah. So how they play fast sound to get you moving out of the restaurant. Similar things can happen like in a lobby of a hotel, where you've got more complicated patterns, because you don't want people to really be hanging around there unless you're selling drinks. So in terms of upskilling, I don't know. But if you're doing a project and want to call me, you're welcome to. And obviously, the more we network in the disability sector, the better. Obviously, low vision affects a lot of seniors who aren't even included in disability per se. So if we want to keep our customers, because your seniors actually got more spending power than your millennials at the moment. And so even when you design for the environment, it's important to make those very inclusive. I haven't really answered your question.
No.
But hopefully I've given you some impetus to find out.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Is that my Siri or yours?
I think it might be yours.
All right.
All right. No, but thank you so much. I really enjoyed that.
Chesway, could you answer that question better?
So I was just about to answer it, and then I looked in the chat. Rainesh just reminded me that there's actually a conference specifically around disability. Rainesh, don't you want to maybe speak up?
Oh, hi everyone.
Hi.
So next month, and I'll let Chesway and Mika, the two organizers I've worked with before, and know about the details that they can share it with everyone. There's a conference that will be attended by the WC3 Foundation, who is the people behind the course Jennifer just mentioned. So yes, there are standards and courses there that you can do that cover color, contrast, accessibility, inclusion, and the conference that will be happening on the 7th and 8th of December, if I remember correctly, is a industry-wide conference. So you'll have, like I mentioned, the W3 Foundation, all the big hitters, your Meta, Microsoft, Google, in attendance, and they will cover different topics, industry partners around disability. It's different topics, different whatnots and whatnots around there. Again, to Jennifer's thing, yes, you can contact me and her. We're both visually impaired or visually disabled. I don't know how you like to mention how you choose to describe yourself there, Jennifer. And I am, in case you're interested, my background is in software development and software architecture. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Ranesh.
Thank you so much.
And then also seeing that a quite nice place to follow is Text Help. You can go to Text Help, and they put out quite a lot of really good stuff around accessibility.
Yeah, and then just
Awesome,
one last
thanks.
thing. One last thing is currently on the Interaction Design Foundation. One of the best ones that they've got is specifically accessibility, how to design for all. This covers universal design. It also covers dealing with SEO besides your alt text, and it also gives you a whole lot of cool tools that you can use. This is specifically from a web development perspective, well, software and web. And then the ultimate guide to visual perception, I just added this one in specifically because it covers a lot of the basics around just understanding how the eye works and how we can design in a way that makes it easier for anybody to view it. So yeah, just wanted to add that quickly.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
There we go.
There's another question there from Sophia. Sophia, don't you want to maybe speak up? Oh, you're very soft. Sophia has a question here that says, Ranesh, could you perhaps share the link to the conference you mentioned? I'll look for it now shortly, Sophia. And I'll also post the links in the chat at the end of the session. I'll actually send it out on the meetup group so that all the links can come afterwards, if that's okay.
That's great. I just want to mention, and this is why I haven't shared it conference as yet. I will share it with you late in the month. They only had the pre-registration set up, so they haven't actually formalized the agenda. But they've mentioned some of their members and partners who will likely be in attendance. And based on last year's conference, which Mika organized a chat session like this after as well, included a whole bunch of things, like I said, around Meta and the different forums and standards that have been put together. So for now, it's just a very much an early registration without actual details. I should also mention that the conference is in California, so it will happen, it's all online, so it will happen in the late evenings, our time.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, so I think for me to end off here as well, also just to say there was a quote, I think it was on that slide deck somewhere, but it says, you know, that design can enable or disable. So when a person is, say, in a wheelchair and there are enough ramps and turning circle spaces, whatever, they're not actually disabled. So it's the design that can enable or disable people despite the condition of their physical body. And I think this is where I'm just so grateful that Chesway, that you've you know, tackled this topic, because I think this is where the solution is amongst designers. So well done, you guys. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for making time, Jennifer, but don't leave yet. I see that Raj also has a question.
It's not really a question, but it's just a comment on this talk. This is really, it's something that's really close to my heart. I remember when I was starting out in design, every time when they asked me, what do you want to do, or what difference do you want to make in the design industry? And I would say I want to be an advocate for the people who are not spoken for. So this is just something that's really close to my heart. But even though, like, I've experienced in the past, well, that it's actually difficult when you to advocate for people that are disabled or people who are visually impaired, especially when you are surrounded with people that are enabled. So it's in the industry where you've got developers that are just pushing product after product, but they don't really care about the person who's going to use your assistive machines or stuff like that. So for me, yeah, it's a hassle to actually advocate, but I love this topic. And I think you are sharing on your YouTube channel on how to actually advocate, right? For people who are visually impaired.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to give the life experience as well. And I think, look, we live in such an amazing time in history, because years ago, the technology for the blind was so different to any other technology. And now everything you need is in your phone. We're on-screen braille display. You may not know it, but everyone has an on-screen braille display in their phone. And, so they are, we live in an amazing time in history. And I just think if we can have a convergence of, of design that enables, it really can make a much more inclusive design, environment, that we don't need to be advocating that. And also that people aren't just seen for their disability, but for who they are, that the disability becomes a non-issue, and then they can get on with their purpose or what they're wanting to give, because people aren't just, they don't lose their passion for life when you become blind. You're not just a blind person, you're someone who has a passion for something. And I think, so what you're saying, you've got a passion for it, and I just want to say, go for it.
Thank you. I'll definitely look at your channel, because I need to share this kind of information with our team, because our devs, our developers, are so reluctant when it comes to actually deving for like including accessibility in their development. So yeah, it was a bit of a hassle actually introducing this, but I mean, yeah, I think I thank you for this shares.
I think what happens is that when you identify a person, so that young developer who's churning out, very smart person churning out these great products, when it's their Google or their grandpa or their father that can no longer bank or shop or whatever because of some impairment or loss of hearing, that's when it impacts people, is when they realize this is close to home. And actually, to not do accessibility now is really is not wise for the future, because we're all selfish at heart, so I've also just put across, if people are designing for their own future.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lorato. The next hand we had up was Hiten.
Hi, so I just want to add to what Jennifer was trying to tell everyone. I'm an architect and I'm a designer, and I deal with disability issues in my work on a daily basis. So if you are a designer, you have the ability to change the world and make it more accessible, more inclusive, one building at a time, one website at a time, or one app. You have to make an effort to do some research, educate yourself. How can you make a product or environment or an application accessible to people who will benefit from it? So if it benefits them, it will benefit you and everyone else as well. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Hiten. Our next hand up is Eugene.
You are unmuted.
Good evening. What a pleasure. I actually, I'm an accessibility specialist working here in South Africa. Sorry about my audio coming through here. Yeah, Jenny Webster, absolutely fantastic. The presentation tonight was really touching. I just want to, if I can give from my side, I'm a Section 508 trusted tester. So I do understand the WCAG, all these things. When you design, you do not have to design for your peers. That is very, very important. And most designers do that. You wish to shine, you wish to show something beautiful to your audience, and your audience on your side is most probably your peer. The mind shift have to be designed for everybody, not for blind people, not for people using joysticks, all those other controls. You need to design to present your product for everybody. And that is I think if we have to take something away from what Jenny talked about tonight, we need seriously to start thinking out of our box and build topics and subjects, products for everybody. And if you can do that, we do not need any other accessible laws in South Africa. But anyway, thank you very much for a fantastic evening. I really enjoyed it. And Jenny Webster, you are a star, man.
Thanks for the encouragement. I'm new in
That's
this.
my story. We will talk tomorrow, but thank you very much.
Yeah.
There's a question here from Rainesh to you, Eugene. He wants to know, how did you become a Section 508 trusted designer?
A lot of work. No,
Yes.
you can if you want to. DHS, the Office of Assistive Technology of the Department of Homeland Security, United States. You can just go to their website. You can enroll there. It's a free course. It's hard work. The exams will take you about a day to complete. I actually took 3 days, but sorry about my mic. But it's hard work. But if you're really passionate about accessibility and you wish to make a real difference, that's the way. The IAAP, the International Association of Accessibility Professionals, also fantastic courses. If you are a member, there are free options. There are a lot of opportunities. But I would start with the IAAP. That is the baseline across the world. I'm a member. We are actually, I think, 4 members in South Africa at the moment of the IAAP, and we wish to get more. The more, the better.
I want to join in that too sometime soon.
Please do. Please do.
What's my products to market? So one thing at a time.
We are busy, with Kenya, talking about, starting a chapter for Africa, for the IAAP. And we obviously in South Africa with, I do not know whether anybody of you know Colette Francolet. She's the country leader, or the GLC leader, of the IAAP. And we are honestly looking for members, people that want to join, that want to know more, that want to work more, because this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eugene. Peter?
So I just wanted to say, I think probably from a design perspective, I would imagine the biggest obstacle currently is the lack of understanding of, like Jennifer, like you said earlier, when it's your gogo or your father or mother or a family member that struggles with any type of disability, you've got a better understanding of what their needs are and what the problems are that they experience on a daily basis. I think sadly, this brings us kind of back to our education, and I know, in architecture especially, it's kind of handled, but it's not really explored in depth. So I would imagine, yeah, that's a big problem at the moment among designers, is that there's a lack of understanding of exactly what the needs and experiences are. You know, you figure, oh, well, you know, I'm designing an app, you know, everybody can use an app, but not everybody can use an app, you know, not everybody can. I had a conversation with my mother earlier this evening where she was having some issues with the Checkers 6060 app and loading a credit card onto it, and I'm not quite sure what she did. But you know, so yeah, I think there has to be an effort for us as designers to understand the problems better and to speak with people like you and Ranesh and everybody to understand what your experiences are, and yeah, sort of come up with ways to deal with that. Yeah, so thank you very much for this presentation.
Okay.
Eugene, is your hand up from earlier, or is it a new hand?
I think it was my cat. Sorry about that.
So I see Ranesh was also asking, do we ever add disabled persons, or are they identified as now user stories? And I think if we're doing our testing correctly and actually speaking to customers from the start, we can actually make sure that those customers or those user stories have the real people in them, because a lot of the places that I've been to, you will always find a customer, and even though there might just be one or two people, they'll tell you specifically, I come into this specific place and there's nobody that can help me, because there's obviously not somebody that's either a translator, or there's probably somebody who isn't who doesn't do sign language, and so they would then have to have the issue with not only a language barrier but maybe also being deaf, and then somebody will need to write down very personal stuff to try and give information to communicate, because there isn't somebody there to actually, you know, speak to them the way they would prefer to be spoken to. So, I mean, in every place, you'll get all of those sort of insights, so that your user stories can actually become a lot more, accurate. But yeah, sorry, that was just my 2 cents worth. I don't know if you guys, because I see it's 1938, and we were going to still cover some quick tools in Figma. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that presentation short and rather just show you where to find it so that you can play with it yourself. And then we'll have another session at a future date that will cover it. So let me just quickly show you where you can find it. So if you are in Figma, can you see my screen? Yeah, I did. You can see it, right? If you go to plugins and go to find more plugins, you'll see that I've already added one here. So you'll just go find more plugins and you'll add stock. And when you add stock, it will give you all these cool options where you'll basically cover the basics that would be focusing specifically on visual impairments. So for example, the easiest one, I'm just going to quickly show you this one first, is the visual simulator. This is nice because you can take, so I specifically made this design, you know, it's got lots of problems. You can see that there's issues with the size of the text, there's issues with the colors, all of that. So what you can do is you can actually generate a view of what it would look like with a specific an eye issue. Sorry, what happened to it? It usually works. It's because I've got it presented now. It's just not showing. But basically, you'll have, sorry, it's because I moved to the wrong side. You'll basically be able to generate all the views that you want. And it is just taking some time. It's rather just, yeah, sorry, but you get the point. So you can test this out for yourself. And the nice thing is if you select different objects, you'll actually be able to test to see if my text is on this background and I'm choosing it as white, or if I choose it as this gray, it will actually show me what it should be or what would be the best. So we can see the ideal would be if I changed it to black. Yeah, I don't want to rush through this. So just look for that plugin. It's one of the nicest ones. And the nice thing about it is that it works in not only Figma, but in Sketch as well. So yeah. That's just for those who joined for Figma. Cool. Any other questions or for Jenny?
I'm waving for those who can't see.
Okay, cool. And then Jenny Kalen says to you, thank you for an amazing session. Loved learning and super excited to be a part of the community. Enjoy your evening.
Excellent.
Yeah, we've got some. Okay, cool. So I'll send the links out to everybody in an email a bit later. But thank you so much for everybody, for joining everybody.
Chat from Wrench Singh to the option.
Thank you from my side as well. It was beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Sorry, let me just stop the recording.